Or watched a movie, one of those heist movies, and the security guard's completely oblivious.
Yeah.
Staring at those grainy security cameras, the action unfolds right under their nose.
Right. Classic.
Turns out that's kind of been a pretty accurate portrayal of AI's ability to understand what's actually happening in live action.
Yeah. Up until now, it seems like.
Until now. And that's what we're diving into today.
Absolutely.
A brand new AI system that's basically giving those security cameras a serious, serious upgrade.
Yeah, it's like giving them a dose of, like, Sherlock Holmes level deduction skills almost.
So no more waving at the security cam, hoping it knows you're not a threat.
Well, not exactly. This new system, though, it was developed at the University of Virginia, and it's designed to actually grasp the context of actions.
Okay, so not just registering that something moved somewhere else.
Exactly. It's not just seeing that someone moved from A to B. It's understanding the nuances of human action.
Okay, so how? How does it do that?
Well, they're calling it SMAST, which is short for Semantic and Motion-Aware Spatiotemporal Transformer Network.
Catchy.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's doing some pretty complex stuff.
So before we jump into how it works, why is this SAMS system such a big deal? What's the big hype?
Okay, so imagine this. You are in a crowded train station, people rushing everywhere, bags changing hands, maybe there's a street performer juggling. Older systems, they might have flagged like half of those actions as potentially risky.
Because they couldn't tell who was actually a threat.
Exactly. They couldn't tell a pickpocket from like someone just reaching for their wallet. SMAST, on the other hand, it's designed to tell the difference. And that's groundbreaking.
That's the difference between actually preventing a crime and just holding up the line for everybody who's just trying to buy a ticket.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does it work? Give us the breakdown. How does it tell the difference?
So it all comes down to how this system, how SMAST, focuses its attention. Like, imagine you're trying to find a friend in that crowded train station,
Yeah.
right? You're not analyzing every single person in the crowd.
Yeah, you're looking for them specifically.
Right. Your brain is looking for certain details, maybe like a bright red coat they always wear or the way they walk.
And then suddenly, boom, you spot them.
Exactly. So SAMAS uses a really similar concept, what's called a multi-feature selective attention model.
Okay.
It basically allows the AI to sift through all of that visual data, and it picks up on the subtle cues and patterns that really define an action, just like our brains.
So we're talking about giving AI a super-powered version of our own attention spans.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, that makes sense for single moments in time, but what about actions that happen over time? So how would it differentiate between say someone stretching in a park versus someone practicing karate?
Right, so that's where SMAST's other superpower comes in.
Okay.
It's got this motion-aware 2D positional encoding algorithm, and essentially what this does is it allows the system to connect those dots of movement over time.
So it's like if you're flipping through a flip book, each page is just a frozen moment.
It's a static imaging.
But you put it all together and suddenly you see the action, you see the story.
Precisely. And that's what this algorithm enables SMAST to do. It can see the entire story unfold.
So I'm starting to see how this could be a game changer, especially for something like security, which is what we were talking about at the top of the show. But are there other uses for this kind of technology beyond spotting a crime about to happen?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where it gets really, really exciting. We're talking potential applications in everything from healthcare to self-driving cars.
So before we got too far off track, we were talking about all these other exciting uses for this technology, beyond just security. I'm imagining self-driving cars that can actually anticipate what a pedestrian's going to do, not just react to them at the last second.
Oh, absolutely. You're right to hone in on that because that is one of the, I think, most promising applications for this kind of technology. Imagine a car that can tell the difference between someone waiting on the sidewalk on their phone versus someone who's about to dart into the crosswalk.
Yeah.
That kind of nuanced understanding of human behavior, that could be revolutionary for autonomous vehicles.
It's almost like we're talking about giving these cars a sixth sense.
Yeah.
But what about, you mentioned healthcare earlier.
Absolutely.
What about how could this be used in a medical setting?
So many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the possibilities in physical therapy, right?
Right.
Right now, a lot of the kind of progress tracking relies on pretty subjective observations from the therapist,
Yeah.
right? But with Scout now, therapists could get incredibly precise, data-driven insights into a patient's range of motion, like their gait,
Yeah.
All those really subtle movements that are difficult to just assess with your eye.
So that'd be huge for like personalized treatment plans and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then it's not just about, analyzing like physical movements. Researchers believe that this kind of technology could be used to detect really, really subtle changes in facial expressions, which could be a complete game changer for diagnosing and treating conditions like, autism or depression.
Oh, wow. So we've gone from security cameras to self-driving cars to potentially like life-changing medical breakthroughs all in one deep dive.
Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface.
Really?
The researchers behind SMAST, they really believe that this is just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of what this technology can do. They're already looking at ways to use it to analyze even more complex human interactions like group dynamics, social cues, you know.
So like AI that can understand not just what we're doing, but like how we're feeling and why.
That is the long-term goal.
Hmm.
And it's ambitious, but it's not as far-fetched as it sounds when we're talking about a technology that's already surpassing the performance of like all these previous AI systems and some very, very rigorous tests.
Speaking of tests, the article mentioned something about SESMAS, like acing some sort of AI Olympics. What was that all about?
Oh, yeah. So you're talking about benchmark tests.
Okay.
Think of them like,
Mm.
standardized tests, but for AI, right?
Okay.
Researchers use them to basically compare the performance of all these different systems so it's all on a level playing field.
So it's like seeing which AI is like the valedictorian of like understanding human action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And SysMatter is graduating with honors. It's like it's consistently outperforming all these other leading action detection systems out there, which tells us this isn't just hype. This is the real deal.
Okay. This is all starting to sound like really, really futuristic, but I'm kind of curious about the origins of all this. Like where did this breakthrough technology actually come from?
Yeah, so SysMat was developed at the University of Virginia by a team of researchers, and it was led by Professor Scott T. Acton.
And I'm guessing they had some like pretty serious backing to like actually pull this off, right?
You bet. The research was funded in part by the National Science Foundation. So, I mean, that tells you a lot about the level of confidence and excitement, even at this early stage, surrounding this technology.
Okay, so we've got cutting edge tech, brilliant minds, and like major funding. What's the catch? There's got to be a downside, right?
Well, I mean, like with any new technology, especially something this powerful,
Hmm.
I think it's really important to at least consider like the potential implications, potential challenges,
Yeah.
right? And we're not talking about, killer robots here or anything
Oh
like that.
no, no, of course not. But like, yeah, what are some of the things we really need to be thinking about as this technology keeps developing?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, the potential for misuse, right?
Okay.
Like any powerful tool slash could be used for purposes that weren't intended, that it wasn't designed for. So we need to be having like these conversations now about how to prevent that from happening.
That's a really good point. And like, it's not even necessarily about malicious intent, right?
Right.
It's also just like the accuracy of the system. No system is perfect. And if we're going to be relying on AI to make really important decisions that could affect people's lives, we need to be sure it's like extremely reliable.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about things like bias in the training data and how to ensure that these systems are like fair and equitable in their application across the board.
Those are definitely important things to consider. It sounds like we're like venturing into some pretty complex territory here.
We are. And honestly, I think these are like conversations that deserve their own deep dive, honestly, to really unpack them. But I think for now, it's important to focus on the fact that this technology has incredible potential to make our lives safer, healthier, and more efficient. And I think that's something worth getting excited about.
I couldn't agree more. This whole deep dive has been like a roller coaster of mind-blowing information. But before we like get too carried away with the possibilities, I have one final question that's kind of been nagging at me this whole time.
I'm all ears.
We've talked a lot about what Ceramast can do right now, what it's capable of today. But like if this is where are we going? What's next on the horizon for this technology?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
It's almost like trying to imagine like the next evolution of the internet back when all we had were dial-up modems. Like who could have predicted what was coming?
Okay, so maybe no flying cars just yet.
Not yet.
But what about in the realm of, AI and like human action detection? What are some of the things researchers are like actively working towards?
So one area that I find really, really fascinating is this idea of AI systems that can not only understand actions, but they can also infer intention.
Okay, so not just seeing what we're doing, but understanding why.
Exactly. Imagine a security system that could tell the difference between someone who's just like, forgotten their keys and is trying to like jiggle the doorknob versus someone who's actually trying to pick a lock.
Oh, wow.
Or a self-driving car that could anticipate a pedestrian's movements, not just based on their current position, but based on their body language, what's going on around them.
That would be incredible. It's almost like we're talking about like giving AI empathy, or at least a very, very in-depth understanding of like how humans behave.
Yeah, it's definitely like a step in that direction. And it all comes down to data.
Okay.
The more data that these systems are exposed to, the better they become at recognizing patterns and then making predictions based on those patterns.
So it's almost like teaching a computer to read between the lines, not just interpret the words on the page, but like understand the emotions and motivations behind them.
That's a really great analogy. And it really highlights the incredible potential of this technology, because we're not just talking about, building smarter machines. We're talking about building machines that can connect with us, that can understand us on a deeper level.
It's exciting. It's also a little bit daunting to think about all of this.
It is.
But I think one thing's for sure, this technology is going to have a huge impact on our world in ways that, honestly, we probably can't even fully grasp yet.
I completely agree. And I think, that's what makes this whole field so incredibly fascinating to me, because we're really just at the beginning of this journey. And who knows where it's going to take us.
Well, on that note, I think we have officially reached peak mind-blown status for one episode.
It's been a wild ride.
This deep dive into, like, the world of intelligent video analysis it's been eye-opening, to say the least.
It really has.
Thank you so much for, like, walking us through all of this.
Oh, it was my pleasure, truly. It's so exciting to talk about this stuff with someone who gets it.
Well, the pleasure was all ours. And for all of you listening out there, keep